Once your mindset changes, everything on the outside will change along with it. That's a quote by Stephen Maraboli, good Italian Maraboli. And I'm super excited to have a chat with Marcin Rafalowicz, good Polish name today. Before I do, just a reminder, if you go to lucydumascoaching.com, you'll see the links for more podcasts, for the YouTubes if you're not watching but listening. And there's a little ebook called 10 Big Ideas for Marketing in the Real World because my superpower is getting out in the world to find people that love what I do and will invest in it. Um, at the computer's good too, but there's nothing that replaces one-on-one relationships. Okay, let me tell you about Marcin. He has been in photography for 17 years, mostly weddings, but he's done a lot more as well. And he says he's seen it all. And what he wants to share is how being successful is not just about getting the shots. He's got a coaching company called Click to Cash in addition to his portrait business. And he also is a branding specialist for big corporate names. So he's got uh, a lot of things that validate why he's on this show. And he's got expertise in automation and AI, business systems, personal branding. And he loves to work along photographers to ensure their businesses aren't just making pretty pictures, but that they're fully operational. All right. So, Marcin, thank you so much for saying yes to being on the show.
Lucy, thank you. And first of all, congratulations on pronouncing my last name correctly, because
Yay.
that's a quite challenge. So you did a phenomenal job there. But congratulations! I think I owe you congratulations also for an appreciation for being able to talk to your audience, talk to you. But I think what you're doing is phenomenal. I always use my dark humor. I say, "Hey, nobody gets out of this game alive," and I think the footprint that you're leaving with all the knowledge and all the
Hmm.
podcasts and providing access to the information for other photographers that are starting. I remember I struggled at the very beginning for years. It wasn't just months or weeks, for years. So having tool like this, it's absolutely phenomenal. And I know you had some phenomenal. You've stacked up some phenomenal names. I think I've seen like Jeff Brown and Gayanis and Campbell and Jeffrey Shaw. So and some phenomenal ladies that I listened to. So big congrats. And I know one person that also mentioned you was Andrew Helmich, which we're recording another conversation with him next month. So big congrats. You're definitely on the right path.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Flattery will get you anywhere.
That's right.
Well, not anywhere. Well, um, uh, thank you. You kind of have me a little like gobsmacked or a little thrown off with that, but thank you.
You deserve it.
I appreciate what you say about the legacy because at this point in my life, I'm not out there grinding away, photographing kids and families and things. But I love helping other people be able to provide those services and make some great income and impact the people that get to work with them. And the fact that we don't know how long YouTube and everything is going to be in out in the world, but knowing that the things that we talk about today, somebody might discover 10 years or 100 years from now, who knows, and change their life. So, yay, thank you. All right, can you give me just the little shortest cliff notes about how you got into photography and making it successful?
Yeah. So where do we begin? I got to tell you, I'm not. It's not a good. I spend a good portion of my time talking to photographers, and a lot of them they are just. I think they're born artists. They experiment with music and art and
Mhm.
paintings, and I don't know, stumble across photography for me was a little different. I started tinkering with technology, just in general, the just electronic gadgets. So camera was like part of that world. I was always fascinated about what like technology can do. So I wasn't really on the conventional like artistic path. I actually kind of like school, which which is a little different, and I followed the standard path maybe because I had Polish parents that were constantly beating it into my head that like you got to go to school, you got to get the certification, you got to get the job, you got to get the diploma. So that was really my like main trajectory, and camera was always there. I was in a sense, I was like a family or maybe self-proclaimed family photographer. So whenever there was an event with family, local friends, I would always bring my camera. I think the first like serious camera was the Nikon Coolpix. It was one of those like that you could
Mhm.
twist around. It was pretty cool, and I was always receiving positive feedback on the photography, and I think it wasn't up to like right before our wedding, 2005. We were planning our wedding, me and my wife. Joanna gave me a list of tasks that I was officially responsible for as a groom, and one of those things was finding a photographer. So I was browsing websites of different photographers, and it's one of those things where sometimes there are things that we know very little about, but sometimes they're like the unknown unknowns, things that you are not aware even exist. So it was one of those moments where I was browsing, I was on a photographer's website, and I looked at prices and I couldn't believe what I saw, because I saw ranges from like $2,800 to like 56. One photographer was probably closer to like $8,000, and it just from the wedding planning mode, I went immediately into like I can probably monetize my skills. so
Yeah, I love
so
that.
this was yeah, this was 17, 18 years ago, because I it was huge, because if I thought the I got to tell you, I was working a regular corporate job, and when I saw those numbers, it almost felt like how you get sometimes the IRS return check end of the year, and it's substantial. It's like a nice injection of money,
Uh,
if
because
you're
I've
lucky, that is.
because I've been in business now since 1982. Actually, I had a
Yeah,
little business before that, so 1978. I haven't. I do remember that back in the olden days when dinosaurs roamed the earth, but that little fun bonus. So anyway, not to interrupt, but so you were saying
yeah,
that.
yeah. So it was like, wow, I can pretty much, if I get a check end of the year for 2 or 3 grand, I can probably do like multiples of that with this business. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of improvising. I made a decision right on the spot and said, okay, let's just pick up a camera, go out there and start shooting, start working with folks, see who I can bring in. And I got to tell you, like now you fast forward to, a few years later, let's say 10 or 11, 12, nobody was probably more dumbfounded than I was, because I somehow ended up being at New York Fashion Week. My pictures ended up in Vogue, ended up in The Guardian, Cosmo. I had an opportunity to
Wow.
work with Harvard School of Ballet. I was on the show Better Connecticut, that was popular when I was living back in Connecticut, and started doing a lot of destination weddings that took me to places I never, I never would think that I would visit. So I was, and it wasn't really talent as much as it was probably networking,
Okay.
because
Okay.
and getting myself involved all over the place with different projects. And this is really, so I mentioned a couple of big names like Vogue, for example. It wasn't that my photography was selected to be in Vogue. It's just I worked on a project, happened to photograph, let's say, fashion portion editorial, and it would end up there because an artist designer would submit my work there. So just for clarity, but it was just absolutely mind blowing going from nothing to just being able to like see your work all over the place.
Yeah. So here's what I heard in that. It was the pivotal moment. And I love hearing all those things that unfolded for you. Wow. I heard you say, I made a decision.
Yep.
And that is the most important thing when we're starting anything or changing anything. wanting to get healthy, quitting sugar. I made a decision again because I was kind of mainlining sugar and candy and realized it's not good for your joints. And my motto now is sugar is pain. I made a decision to back way off from the sugar. So you made a decision based on the, the universe showing you things or however. So part of what I want to talk about today, so there's two things. One is about AI, and then one is about mind shifts. And
Okay.
that making a decision to me is actually that big part of mind shift. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the funny thing is that making decisions when you're younger, it just becomes more of a natural thing. You don't really overthink it. I think it comes with maybe experience, maybe the baggage that, as we get older. Because I noticed it was much easier to switch to something, to like photography in my 30s than it would be now when I'm in my
Hmm,
50s, right? So that's important to
interesting.
know.
So
And mindset.
I
Yeah, go
would
ahead.
disagree with that for me and other
Okay.
people that I've worked with as coaching because I began to develop confidence in myself. So
Yep.
when I made decisions or I had mindset shifts
Uh-huh.
about wanting to change, I had more confidence uh, that I could do this thing, and I had more experience to know how to do it. But I know what you're saying about having the courage to do things. So yeah,
Yeah, and I agree with you. You mentioned confidence. Confidence comes from competence, right? Like you had the experience, and I totally agree when it comes to that. You do have the experience, but I think part of that is also stepping out of the comfort zone and just from the day to day. Our brains are malleable. Once the neurons wire together, they work
you're right.
together. Stepping out of that and like, oh, there's this completely new thing I want to experiment with. It's a little harder. It was harder for me, but I agree. We're all wired differently, so it could be a different experience for other people.
Yeah. And I'm the kind of person that now I sometimes hang on too long. Like I stayed in a networking group for way too long that I wasn't getting any work. The head of it, we didn't, it wasn't serving me, but I'm a person that makes a commitment and keeps going. Um, but what was I trying to say? Um, I don't know. I forgot what I was going to say. Um, that that the shift. Oh, I don't like to be miserable. There are people
Yep.
who will just stay with the same job their whole
Yep.
lives and talk about change. And, we have different personalities, uh, different motivations, different ways that our brain work. So, but yes, I get what you're saying about the um, sampling the world. And anyway, so we're in agreement. And so I wanted to, first of all, have you define mind shifts. And you you put a little note in there about moving from perfectionism to profit focused action. But first of all, what do you mean by mindset shifts?
Mindset shift. So I think of it because I have a technology background. This may sound a little technical, but let's see if anybody can track. So I almost define your depending on where you were born and raised over time, and there's actually science behind it. Like kids
Hmm.
until they turn 7, their brain actually works on a different frequency, the theta frequency. They're little sponges running around. Anything you say, that's why it's so easy for them to learn languages. And not only they learn languages, they also, we learn values, we learn behaviors, we adopt everything without really questioning. Kids are, they just basically see and they repeat. And part of that, I mean, it's phenomenal that we can do it with such ease when we're this little. But the problem with that is once your mindset is kind of set, and this usually happens at wires, it's becoming baked in at about 25. It's very hard to like run a software update on your brain.
Mm.
So whenever
So,
somebody's
so it's
coming
like
up
on
with,
sorry, so it's like on your computer, my current iMac, um, there's software that I can't install. It's an Apple, and the newer whatever they're called, the newer platforms.
yep,
No, I can't put it on there. So it's like you're saying our brain is kind of like an old computer where
absolutely.
there's no support anymore for new stuff.
Absolutely, and it's part of this subconscious that we run in psychology, because it's part of my background.
Mhm.
There's this analogy of your brain kind of consisting of four different animals steering you every morning, since from the moment you get up to when you go to sleep. And the four animals are two monkeys, one elephant, and one lizard. And what happens is the two monkeys sit on top of the elephant, and there's one monkey that's logical, and there's one monkey that's emotional.
Mm,
And the elephant is really the subconscious, because a lot of times we are under the impression that we are in control of what we're doing, what we're thinking, where in reality, we only probably think of 5% of it. From we're only are able to um, wrap our head around 5% of the information that hits you. So, for example, right now, when Lucy's sitting and listening to Marcin, if I say, "Hey, Lucy, are you cold or warm?" It's not the information that you normally think about, but the second you would get warm or cold, you would put a sweater on, right?
mm,
Just naturally, but it's not something we actively think about. It's just something that our brain scans for all the time actively, whether it's sound, the dog was just barking in the back, you probably heard him, whether it's temperature or, so mindset. Now I'm going back to mindset answering this question. It's like we have this table, we have this, almost think of it as like a vocabulary, like a thesaurus, like a almost like a little personal Bible of like, this is how I run my life. The
mm.
problem with that is whenever new ideas come up on a horizon on the map, we tend to reject them without also questioning, because we're in this comfort zone. We don't want to change. Things seem
Right.
to be working fine, especially when you get the feedback from people that are surrounding you, close family, maybe close friends. They're all kind of doing things repetitively the same as you. Switching from that mode to now listening to new ideas and breaking through that wall is extremely hard. So it's very, very important, because and back to the big elephant doesn't really want to listen to neither the emotional or the logical monkey. Elephant listens to stories. That's the only way how we can get to people.
Ooh.
So emotional monkey would always react first. This is how our brain is wired. There's a limbic system. This is the emotional monkey. And then there's frontal cortex, which is the logical monkey. Emotional monkey usually wins. Think about you're in a restaurant and you're craving a chocolate lava cake.
Oh.
You get excited. You want the dessert. And then usually that's the emotional monkey. Then usually logical monkey kicks in. It's too many calories. You're gonna have to now 2 days, and right. So that's literally what happens. And fear, the lizard is usually sitting in the back, and fear you just have to ignore, because as human beings we have two fears. So one fear of falling when we're born, and one fear of loud noises. So
Mm.
you see how this psychology running in the background kind of steers our life without ever asking if we're okay with that. So you said you're a person that's maybe more intentional. I'm trying to be this way all the time, where I try to steer my life to where I like my life to be, instead of following some sort of predefined framework, right?
Right. Um, this is fascinating. And I wonder, there's a program that I use when I'm coaching or just talking to friends called the Kolbe test, Kolbe, and it
Yep.
measures, it's not a personality test. Uh, it's not like Myers-Briggs. It's about how you get things done. And
Okay.
there's four categories. There's the planning, there's the organizing, there's the dreaming and action, and then there's the doing. And maybe I already said doing, but I found that I'm high on what they call the quick start of the getting ideas and taking action. And it took me decades to realize my sister, she cannot take in something new right away without a negative response. And I
Okay.
finally learned with my sister, I need to not say, hey, let's go to Hawaii. Because she'd be like,
Uh-huh.
no, 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 no. I mean, right now she'd say, yes, let's go. But
Yep.
now I would say, what do you think about this? I was pondering going to Hawaii. I don't know, maybe it could be good. Um, think about it a little bit. And then the next day,
Yep.
she's like, I was thinking about that. So she needs time to let something settle in. So fascinating what you just said. So the change
Yeah.
in mindset, go ahead.
No, it's a perfect analogy, perfect example. You're planting that seed and allowing her to go through the emotional phase, and then the logical one kicks in, and she can actually justify it and make the decision. Instead of you trying to enforce it, her emotional self responds. It's usually a no because our brain is wired to for preservation of the body, right? Like don't move,
Right,
don't do anything, just sit there and be
right.
safe. So yeah, perfect analogy.
So so if I'm hearing what you're saying, the reptile, the lizard, or did you say lizard? Uh,
Yeah, Elizabeth, yeah,
yeah, takes over for her at times.
yeah,
First, the fear. And
yeah.
so letting that side of her brain just, let it wander off and go eat some bugs or something.
We can
Um,
probably see examples all the time when very often when we get into an argument, even with a relative, or we're reacting to kids, even as adults, we usually react emotionally first, then we go back, the emotions go down, the hormones go down. You think about it, and then the logic kicks in, and it's like, well, that was maybe too loud, too much, and then
right.
you usually go and apologize, like, hey, sorry, I
Yeah.
misfired there, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And over the decades that we've been sisters, I would try to argue my case with her, not realizing that it made it worse and worse and worse. So yeah,
Yeah.
everybody processes in their own way, and there's blocks that I have too. One of my challenges is I get too many things swirling. It's like a swarm of bees over my head all the time with ideas and wants and thoughts
Yeah.
and emotions and such. So, okay, so the mindset, you would define it as what? The mindset is,
A mindset is it's almost like a scripted book of rules that you follow
got it.
blindly,
So how do you
and the
shift
book needs
then?
to be then rewritten.
How do you rewrite the book of your mind
Yeah,
and your
very.
emotions and your monkeys and all of that? The
Yes.
perfectionism to profit, is
So
that
it's
part of
really
it?
no, perfectionism is the killer of the change because you're gonna constantly overthink. I think it's with it aligns with what you said earlier. With small changes, this is how you get there. Because
Mhm.
what happens is you make a small change, it's not that big of a risk, right? And if in case when you get rewarded, like your sister, maybe you're eventually able to convince her to go with you. She goes, she sees that it's phenomenal time. She had a awesome time with you guys hanging around, fantastic pictures, right? Memories forever. And you get that reward. And then it's much easier to say yes the second time around. And this is how we do it. And going to another place could be a big change. But anything small, even let's say you're trying to create, how does this translate to photography and like business? Let's say you're trying to go out and create content. Don't overthink it. Don't think it has to be perfect. Don't think that you have to be creating phenomenal reels to share online. You only have to create. Think of it this way. What's the good analogy here? When people think of advertising their business, they immediately think of creating this phenomenal billboard that glows and that everybody can spot from a highway. the trick here is the phenomenal billboard will probably take a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of human resources to put it up. So we're not aiming this high day one. We're basically trying to get a cardboard piece of paper with our business name and placing it along the highway somewhere. Maybe if we have enough time, maybe replicating the same, copying the same sign and putting it on, next to whatever, maybe a store, a highway, a road that's nearby, maybe school. So think of it this way: it's more about exposure, right? And that's really what it is. So the change has to be small, and then we can always go out and improve the signs. We can always make them better over time. We can invest money when money starts flowing in. We can then start investing and making it better and bigger and more fancy, and eventually we get there. This process takes time. People need to understand that, because a lot of times they're usually standing on the ladder, on the step one of the ladder, looking at somebody that's standing on step 37.
Mhm.
That comparison is a kill of everything, enjoyment and effort. And because it's, that's what we tend to do. That's how we, as human beings, that's how we learn from other people. So that's a gap that I always try to tell everybody, like, don't just focus on you, on your version from yesterday and your version from today, or your version from today and your version from a week ago. This is how we make progress.
I love that. I love that. It reminds me of the saying, don't compare your insides with someone else's outsides, because I've been in this
Yeah.
business long enough now to know that how somebody looks and what you assume about their success is not always the truth. And
Yeah.
maybe the lies that we tell ourselves internally and our insecurities and that mindset, we are in here knowing all of that, but we're not in them knowing all of their success or what it took to get there. Comparison is the thief of joy. You basically said that.
Yeah.
Instead, comparison can be an inspiration if we look at it right. And like someone like you, maybe someone comparing where they are to where you've been is then a good reason to, let's see, let me get to know Marcin. Maybe he can help me. Maybe I'll listen to other podcasts that he's on and get some good ideas rather than, I don't know, self judgment of I'll never get there. Those of us that have gone a little farther ahead on a path, so many of us love to help, you know, reach back and help people move forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love conversations, and especially I love when somebody's reaching out, when they work up the guts to ask a question, raise the hand. Always happy to help. And the thing is, this comparison business, it's and learning in general. When somebody's watching this podcast, and let's say you ask me about my daily routine, like even if I spelled it out and gave you the exact chart of what I do, minute per minute, should somebody starting follow the same plan? The answer is no,
Mhm.
because it's different level. My focus is somewhere else. Maybe I'm focusing on weddings, but you want to focus on newborns. It's a totally different map, right? So very often people look at other folks online and it's like, oh, this guy meditates or then reads a book for 2 hours and then then he's doing visualization for another hour, and like seems like for 4 hours this person is just relaxing, where you as a beginner should be probably focused on something tangible, where like you got to move the needle first, right? You're not at the point where you can relax. This is crunch time. This is the climb. As we say, everybody enjoys the view. Most people hate the climb. So, but that's unfortunately what it is at the very beginning. You got to climb for a little bit to enjoy the view.
Yes. Um, I do love seeing the view, and I'm thinking about times when I've hiked and it's been a struggle, and when I get there, the view is much more beautiful than if I could have just driven there. So I love
Well,
that. The journey, um, being not perfectionist and way perfectionistic, because when we're hiking, we're not, oh look, I put this foot wrong and this foot wrong. We just, like you said, put one foot in front of the other, do the thing. If it was not a good decision, okay, think of another path. I do you have can you I'll tell you a silly one, but give you time to think about something that you thought this was a really good idea. That then you're like, oh yeah, no, not so good. So are you up for that challenge, Marcin?
That was a good idea, and then I thought it was a bad idea.
No, something that you thought was a good idea, but
Yeah,
was a bad idea. This goes way back to the
absolutely.
beginning. I'm not sure I even had my business license yet. And there used to be this huge Halloween uh, party at,
Yeah,
in Big Hall. The costumes were incredible. There were prizes, and we were friends with the director or friends with friends. And I thought, oh, I'll set up a little background.
okay.
I got orange fabric and spiders and spider webs and set up, and I was charging like $5 a shot, and it was film in so at the time I only had a 35 millimeter probably.
Yeah.
Um, and what I realized is even if I was doing that part right, you don't do it long into the party because then people are drunk. So something like that, first of all, there's not really much money in that. The experience was fun, but then it got not fun because as I sat there and people got drunker and drunker, it was pretty miserable. So that was just one little bad decision I thought was a good decision. And orange.
Yeah.
Don't use orange for a background. That's also not good. Uh, do you have any thoughts about some little thing
Oh,
you did that
there
you're
was probably plenty over the years, but I always laughed at like my bad ideas or my what I thought were good ideas that turned out to be bad ideas carry first and last name because a lot of times it was just clients, and I'll tell you what I mean by that is that sometimes I pushed myself into an opportunity where I thought just financially it was making sense or business wise, connection
Hmm,
wise, it was making sense. Even though I was absolutely not listening to my compass because my inner self, the inner workings was just flashing alarm signals, and I thought, no, I'll just muscle through it, and it'll be fine. And it happened more than once, probably in 18 years, maybe six, maybe eight times. So we're talking about this climb. It almost felt like I was climbing, and then had to actually go back for about half an hour down the hill and find another way up. So yeah, it happens. It happens all the time. But I gotta tell you, the lessons don't come from wins. When you're winning,
right,
you're just winning. You have to fail to learn. That's the only way to learn, right?
right, right.
So
Uh,
I always say worst moments of my life are best moments of my life
yeah.
because there was always a lesson.
So I love that. So what we're kind of coagulating this into is that the mindset of I've got to know every step and I've got to do it exactly right is the way to basically fail because it's the journey that teaches us that when we do things and we think, oh, this is going to be great, and then oops, nope, got nothing. But what did I learn from that? So I like the mindset of taking every opportunity to grow, whether from success or from orange backgrounds with a bunch of drunks.
Absolutely agree with you. I always say, and entrepreneurship is the best is the best self development platform because you constantly fail and constantly improve and constantly. It's not people say you learn a lot from books, sure, knowledge wise, but like from then experience, right? You can read 100 books and do nothing with the knowledge.
Right.
It's the magic happens when you start, dexterity with your hands and start doing things and moving forward. That's where the learning really
Yeah.
happens.
You and I are so on the same page. I've said that hundreds of times. on this show. I think that
Yeah.
to me, the personal growth opportunity, um, both our strengths get stronger, but also things that are our sticking points, our challenges are going to show up in our face. And if we're going to
Abs-
keep growing, we have to manage them. Mine, I grew up in a very, we'll say, lizard-based, fear-based family. And
Yeah.
so, like when I did weddings for 12 years, Marcin,
Uh-huh.
early in my career. Late December, early January, I would be sure this was the year I was going to starve to death. And no matter how
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
every year I got lots of work and I was great at networking. So I had lots of referrals and all of those things, hardly had to officially market other than bridal shows. But my fear would pop up. And eventually I was able to trust. That's where, for me, as I matured, I was able to quiet the little lizard that is afraid and
Yep.
let the confidence of, well, I'll figure it out no matter what. Like, worst case scenario, if all of that were to happen and I were to end up um, homeless, I would figure out what to
Yeah.
do then. I would find a community. I'd figure it out. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it, being an entrepreneur is such a beautiful way to become more of the best version of ourselves in so many ways. Sounds like we're in agreement on that.
Absolutely. 100%.
Love it. Okay, can we get into just a quick, before the clock runs out, quick talk about using AI to automate tasks that we shouldn't be doing manually, leveraging AI.
Yeah. So
I know
before
it's a
we
big, I know it's a big like, so uh,
no, it's totally okay. It's fine. Let's drive all over the road. The thing with AI is so I have to share a little bit, I think, of the philosophy on how I view photography businesses in general, because I think I always look at this opportunity as like two big knobs, right? And one is marketing, one is ability to market, and that includes selling, and then or business, like a big bucket of just random stuff, business related, and then just photography, meaning your photography skills. How good are you at photography as art, right? And before I even say the next thing, we have to define what we're optimizing for, because there are folks in photography business that want to be great artists.
mhm,
Like that's just, they're usually pushed for accolades. They usually compete. That's they're driven by this. And don't get me wrong, money always follows talent. So if you're a phenomenal photographer, you probably can afford to think of the business aspect less, because you will eventually build the momentum, the following, the people, and the money will be there. That's a promise. On the other hand, not everybody is from the folks, at least that I have encountered, in the photographers that I met in my circles, were mostly folks like me working, maybe corporate gig or another job, or maybe some stay home moms, or whatever. So the optimization there, the goal wasn't to become this super known artist. It was more just, how can I make money with it? And this is exactly kind of like what I'm focusing on. And I have to understand that, like, AI, when it enters the picture, why is it, why even look at AI? Well, you have to look at it because it's a fantastic lever that you can pull. You're just in this game by yourself at the very beginning. You're one person wearing a lot of hats. You're
mhm,
switching constantly, daily, right? And AI is there to come to the rescue. Especially the pace at which AI is advancing is absolutely phenomenal. And when we say AI, it's this big furry monster, right?
mhm.
Like, it sounds like a big word. It's hard to define. I think of of it as just AI. For me, it's more of a automation mix and AI. They sound like they're interchangeable, but they're not. Automation, I think more of like I write the emails, but a system automates sending them to a client. This
Ah,
is AI is lives on a website. It knows everything about my business, and it helps and it chats with the client almost as if it was me on the website 24/7 without me as I sleep, right?
got it.
So that is the difference. And in terms of the automation, there's so many things. This is going to be probably exclusive for me to say it on your podcast for the first time. But I'm working on a book, and I just started writing chapter 8. But chapter 7 was all about AI and leveraging AI for photography business. And I have to go quick because due to time. But if you think AI and automation, when we combine them both, and before I list the options, let's do another definition. So AI, like when we say artificial intelligence, what is intelligence in the first place? And intelligence is just knowledge and some sort of framework on how to use this knowledge, how to combine the knowledge to come to a result. And that's what we do in our brains. We have the knowledge, we make decisions, and we arrive at a certain outcome, right?
Hmm.
And AI is just doing this on synthetic platform, right? It's on the computer, lives there, but it can kind of do the same thing you do. If I share with the client my pricing or the way I work or packages or any limitations, AI would be able to read this information and provide the same answers, right? So that's exactly what happens with AI. And where can we integrate it? There's actually a couple places, but folks that I usually run into, photographers, they usually use AI for like email copy or website copy, or maybe they're running some posts on social media using maybe ChatGPT or Claude
Hmm.
or Grok to do that. That's almost like a fundamental level of using AI. But AI can, then there's probably another group that's more advanced that's using also AI for like editing workflows. So after
Hmm.
shoot, right? Think in terms of those terms, they can do that.
Right.
And but then
Even
also AI. Yeah, go ahead.
even on Photoshop now, there's so many tools that are AI driven. I mean, we still need to make decisions and ask it to do things and then decide if it did what we want. But,
Correct.
we're
Correct.
not,
But with aftershoot, for example, the whole process of selecting images, selecting the correct ones, right? And then applying some sort of basic editing, maybe not album ready images, but if you're providing digital files, can be done without your intervention. You load files up, it comes out from the other end, edited. So
mm,
culling, selections, and editing is all done.
got it.
So and
Right.
this cost, you in the past you were able to outsource it, right? Maybe find somebody on Fiverr, maybe find somebody that with the right skill set, pay them, but it was still expensive. Now it's just becomes it's fraction of the cost, right?
Right.
So you can get the software that does the same thing for $60 a month, right? Which is super affordable.
Okay.
So so
So I
yeah.
want to pause one sec because here's how I think they connect the
Uh-huh.
mindset conversation and AI is
Yep.
that belief in the I need to do it all myself. I need to edit. They might cut out the one that was really the best. All of that when shift to, well, but would I rather have more time, more income, more time to market and photograph and get money rather than grinding through click at a time. And
Yep.
that's to me, that Marcin is a mindset shift to letting tools, even if we go back to, and I'm guilty of that. I never successfully found an editor because of
Yep.
my perfectionism that could do what I needed. And people paid me many, many, many thousands of dollars. So I felt like, okay, spending personal time doing all of this, I was okay with that. But what else could I have done to enhance my career, to reach more people, to, you know, photograph more, to get more income if I had found somebody and been willing to release that perfectionism with an editor or now with the AI world. So I think that's a loop back because I think that's a big block for AI.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. And I was in the same spot for about 11 or 12 years
Mm,
where it was just me, right? And we have to remember that this 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 image only exists of us being perfectionists and delivering this quality work. It kind of exists in our head, because client is not aware of that, and client is the ultimate judge. I always say that as photographers and slash editors, we the ultimate judge. If client receives the work and is happy because they received it in 2 weeks, this is a month, and they can't tell a difference, who is the ultimate judge? Is it
right.
then us or is it the client? Right? Like they get to ultimately decide. And I very quickly learned that even when I started outsourcing, was it the same as I would typically do? No, it was probably 70%. And then the big question is the client, will the client be happy? And I broke through this wall of like, whoa, the response I got from the clients was just fantastic. The business blew up because I wasn't the bottleneck. I no
Yeah,
longer, it was just me editing.
I love that. So we are almost out of time. Such good stuff. I'm so glad. So here's how I found Marcin. He friended me. I looked at who is this guy? Oh my gosh, he's got so much to share. Hey, Marcin, do you want to be on my podcast? So it, if y'all are thinking, I want to be on Lucy's show, and don't think you have to like be just just get on my show and we'll have some things that you know and you can share to the world. And it can be as simple as friending me, Lucy Dumas, Lucy with an I, and then saying yes. So, yeah, anyway, I'm so glad you reached out and then I reached back and then here we are. So, two things. I know you have a gift for our listeners. It's a future gift, but they need to register for it. So, tell me quickly so we don't run out of time what that is
Yeah.
and how to
The
reach it.
easiest way, the easiest way, I always, folks usually struggle at the very beginning. I've noticed as I work with more and more individuals, I've noticed that they have sort of like an issue identifying what should I work on first, right? So I'm overwhelmed. It feels like drinking from a hydrant building this business entity. And they want to know, where do I go first? What's my sort of weak link, weak point, right? Like where,
Mhm.
if I focus just on one thing this week, and something could double my business, what would that area be? So I at one point created the sort of like an online assessment where somebody can go and get scored across the business. Do you have an issue with marketing? Do you have a problem with lead generation? Is it related to maybe business and pricing? So they can actually go to proimageacademy.com/start, and they can just take it. It's a no charge. They just go in there, they take the assessment, and in the end, they end up with some sort of a report, a scoreboard, kind of illustrating, hey, here are the strong areas. Here's things that you don't have to worry about. Here is something where you should be focusing on first, with some
Great,
recommendations on how to start and how to do it.
great, great. I thought you were going to talk about the pre-published book early chance to
Yes, that's a bonus number. That's a bonus number too. So for anybody that takes the assessment, obviously we have in the end the email address where I will be providing the link to a version of the audiobook that I'm working on right now. So you guys get to get the pre-release version of the book and audio version to listen to it. And everything we have covered today, plus more, will be in that audiobook. So I would highly recommend go fetch it before it's available to public. This is something that's exclusive to Lucy's show. So take advantage of it
Thank you.
if that's something that you would like.
I love it. Okay, last thing, as people who listen to my podcast know, is I would like to know either is there something education wise that you're going to think, oh man, I wish I had mentioned that briefly, or just parting thoughts that you want us to ponder in our hearts?
I have I had a conversation recently with a good friend of mine, and he said, "What would be a good advice like to share with our we both I have two daughters, 13 and 15, and he has kids same age, high school or entering high school or going on to college." And he said, "What would be like a generic advice?" And I said, 50 books. If it takes you a year, do one book a week. If it takes you 2 years, if it takes you 3 years, whatever your time is you're allowing you to do, just tackle books that are either business, marketing, mindsets, anything really, because what that's going to do is it's not really about a tactic in the book. It's about cracking that ego and cracking that mindset that we started at the beginning with, because you it's just going to open up your horizons and give you and make you think about options that are available out there. Sometimes you're not going to like it because it's contradictory to how you were maybe raised or wired, but it's a phenomenal exercise. I know that this was an advice that was given to me by Myron Golden at one point. I think to quote Myron directly, he said, "You don't know enough."
Ah,
And that was a shift in my trajectory, my path, where I said, okay, how do I fix it? Okay, books is one way. Let's do it, and it totally changed my life.
that's huge. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Marcin. And uh, people will stay on for, I don't know if I can wrap all of this up in a couple of minutes, but I'll try to give a little overview. Um,
Okay.
and you're awesome. I I love when my instinct catches, oh, this guy seems like he's got a lot of good stuff to share. And absolutely,
Yeah.
you're like a deep, deep well with a wide, wide stream of thoughts and experience and motivation and all that good stuff. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. It was a pleasure.
One of the reasons I love being the podcast person is I meet the most incredible people, and Marcin, uh, everyone that I've talked to is incredible. And he came out of the blue, and he's got so much wisdom for the current world of photography. I'm not sure I can do a full out wrap up, but we talked a lot about mindset shifts. And one of the core things is to release the idea of perfectionism and to, conquer our fears, let things um, scare us, go ahead and do those, learn from our adventures that don't always go well. Uh, and then we talked about AI and how we can use that to scale, to grow. We can let, again, that perfectionism, kind of the full circle perfectionism, calm down and see how we can use new tools that we have to actually achieve those goals. Because sitting at a computer day after day, night after night, doing things that could be done very well, does it make sense if we're not getting the value of our time? So yeah. Anywho, thank you very much. Like I said, I would love if you've got something to share. You don't have to be highly profitable right now, but if you've got something good to share, please let me know because I'm always looking for great guests. Wednesday comes around every week. And so that's it for now, and enjoy the rest of your week.